resting in existence. Resting in awareness. Resting in being. Sat Chit Ananda. Let's silently repeat the following intentions for healthy life. Joyful, energetic body. Loving, compassionate heart. Reflective, alert mind. Lightness of being. Now begin to feel the body, sense the circulation, observe the flow of the breath. And now let's gently bring our palms together in front of the chest. Bow to our highest self. Thank you. Now let's begin to slowly open our eyes. Namaste. 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 We get to do this. We get to do this together. It's just so great. So before we get into the subject today of the Purusharthas and the specific one for the day, I wanted to share something with you. I certainly want to express gratitude again to Dr. Suez. He just resonates with such brilliance and is always inspiring, and always so grateful to get to spend time with him. But I especially appreciated what the further elaboration on Mauna. But I wanted to share this with all of you. Once the disciple Bashkali approached his guru, Bava, and asked him where that supreme, eternal, infinite Brahman of the Upanishads was. The master spoke not. The disciple asked him again and again, but the master did not open his mouth. He kept perfect silence. The disciple insisted and asked him again and again, but in spite of it, the master didn't answer, abiding in his quietness. Only much later, the teacher said, I have been telling you again and again, but you do not understand me. What am I to do? That Brahman, or God, the infinite, the eternal, cannot be explained. But by deep silence only can it be known. There is no other place for it to dwell in but the one eternal deep silence of the Supreme Self, Atman. Aham Atma Shantaha. This Atman is silence. God or Brahman is supreme silence. Soul is silence. Peace of mind is silence. Silence is the deep language of the heart. And because of this, it is the language of the wise sage. Silence is immense strength, and strength is great eloquence. Silence is the substratum of this body, mind, prana, and senses. Silence is the background for this entire sense universe. Silence is power. Silence is the only reality. The peace that passeth all understanding is silence. The goal of your life is silence. The purpose of your existence is silence. Behind all noises and sounds is silence, your innermost soul. Silence is your real name. Silence helps the intuitional self to express itself. To go into the silence is to become one with God. So today, it's great how we don't even know what day it is. It's just today. I don't know what day it is. It's today. Today, we want to incorporate and reflect a little bit on the second of the Purusharthas, Artha, A-R-T-H-A. Sorry, I don't see it, Jake. Thank you. I want to just briefly remind us again that the inquiries into these Purusharthas, it's not just about acquiring more information or knowledge, although that's part of it, but really the reason for even incorporating this into our retreat is to provide some tools for us to begin to see, to have a little more context for our life in any moment. And certainly while we're on retreat, we can begin to cultivate this self-observation that Deepak keeps talking about, this witnessing awareness. Because in every moment of our lives, we are gently being motivated by desire. I mentioned the other day that the spiritual desires are dharma and moksha, and the material desires are artha and kama. And this isn't in any way to denigrate the material, so-called material desires. But we want to always see them in context to the whole of the Purusharthas. And again, this is why the subject of dharma is always the first, because it acts as a kind of a guide, a kind of a rudder for our lives. Because although Artha, as Deepak mentioned, is fairly primary to us and to every actually living organism, you might say nourishment or the means by which we can continue, to live, is fundamental. And yet, as we grow, as we become more aware, as we become more conscious beings, we recognize that it's not the primary concern, that our primary concern is aligning with a sense of purpose, a sense of dharma. So in that regard, Artha is, basic survival in some respects. It is, in the beginning, it is that which we need to feel safe. So safety is a big factor when we consider Artha. To have the safety of a roof over our heads, the safety in some ways of appropriate nourishment in our lives, which Suhas spoke so beautifully about last night. So inspiring always when he talks about nutrition and the importance of it. So Artha, as we consider it for human beings, I mean, Artha exists for everything, but Artha for our lives is, and I associate the soul question, what am I grateful for, with Artha? Because the practice of gratitude is really fundamental to our appreciation and right relationship with the material world, with our material resources. When we consider at any moment of our lives what we actually have to be grateful for right now, and we start considering all the things that we have to be grateful for, maybe just simply starting with our physical bodies, with our clothing, with the safety of our environment, whatever that might be, the weather, the sunlight, the air, and certainly all of our resources in terms of money that we buy things with. We buy our computers, our tools of our trade. All the many, many things. If we start to really just stop and ask the question, in this moment, what am I grateful for? And we start to actually list through the things that we have right now, not that we want in the future, but that we have. There's no end to it. There's no end to what we can feel gratitude for. So as we feel gratitude, the heart begins to expand, and we begin to feel bountiful and abundant. And as the law of attraction says, in that state, we attract more of the same. It's a law. It's just a simple, fundamental law of nature. So gratitude is really fundamental to our relationship with the material world and with our resources and the means by which we can ultimately live our purpose. So our basic material survival needs, we think of it. And that's why I think it's important to consider that first, because in our culture, we've really gotten kind of way off our understanding and appreciation and priorities and valuing material resources. So the means by which we need, the means we need that will support our purpose, our dharma. Again, this is a very important inquiry. How do the means I acquire and the means I seek, how are they in alignment with my sense of purpose? Are they in appropriate alignment? Money is associated with Artha, as I was saying, and what money represents, our ability to acquire things. Food and nourishment are part of Artha, as Suhas was saying last night. part of the means by which we will continue to survive: shelter, land, clothing, fundamental resources. Our health and physical well-being is associated with Artha, our constitution and our immune system. When it's functioning well, we're able to perform our duties more efficiently and with more joy. The breath, the simple breath that we talked about in pranayama, very much a part of Artha, part of the means by which we can live our purpose, and the environment, whatever that might be. Our work and our service, our career, the way we contribute to the community is in some respects part of Artha. And all of these things you'll be able to kind of think about, reflect on, maybe even in your contemplation during the retreat. You know, what is Artha in my life? What does Artha represent for me? As I said, the skills and training, the tools of the trade, our livelihood and our ability to earn, and all of that which we accrue from our own labor are associated with Artha. Another aspect of Artha is our, in some ways, desire to impact the world. This is a little different dimension of Artha. But in that can be a positive thing, and sometimes maybe not such a positive thing, because it can result in a desire. I think that says it better than anything, doesn't it? So this desire to impact the world, obviously, as we said it, with respect to Dharma, our desire to impact the world, if we're in alignment with Dharma, it becomes a creative influence. But in a not such positive way, it can give more of a desire for power and prestige. You know, this desire for the ego to feel more and more and more in control and safe. You know, it comes from that deep insecurity sometimes. Now, power isn't all bad. You know, if power is used in alignment with Dharma, you know, we can accomplish great things in the world, and many people do. Many people have a big Dharma influencing millions of people. We know people. Our reputation in the community is in some ways associated with Artha. You know, we develop through our choices, through our actions, we develop a relationship with the community where the community can kind of depend on us in certain ways for certain things, and we become more secure in that in those roles within the community. Certainly, all the practical results of our actions and choices are associated with Artha, and that's why always asking the question before we make choices: is this either a nourishing choice for me, or is it not a nourishing choice for me? And we know better than anyone can tell us whether our choices are nourishing for us or whether they are not nourishing. Or also, is this choice an evolutionary choice? I like that inquiry very much. Is this choice an evolutionary choice, or is it not an evolutionary choice? Again, these inquiries are powerful and profound because they take us into our own deeper knowing. Artha has to do with, in many ways, the ways we actualize our knowledge. We bring it into the world. We manifest our knowledge in the world in a creative way. Our efforts, our great labors, that which keeps us safe and secure is associated with Artha. So again, you know, when we're reflecting on what's moving me now, what desires are active in me now, a lot of times the desire for safety is there. As I said, it really is the origin of all of our, we call ego, all of our self-defense patterns that we develop in order to feel safe, to feel secure in the world. And that's why, as Deepak pointed out, you know, the ego isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But when the ego or the personality or the idea of a me, when it takes center stage and we're completely dominated in our awareness by that fixation or that character, we forget our essential nature, who we really are. So the essential nature needs to be, primary, of course, and that's why all of our spiritual practices give us the ability to restore that connection with our authentic selves, with our own inner being, with our own inner silence. So the practice of meditation, silence, prayer, the spiritual path, these are all, in some ways, aspects of Artha, too, because they help us to be in a position where we can live our purpose, express our purpose. So one inquiry around Artha is, what is essential to me? What is essential? This is an important question in terms of our material resources, because we do acquire a great deal of things that are not essential. I'm sure we'll all agree. I don't know about you, but during the first beginning period of the pandemic, many people, and myself included, began to really consider, whoa, I've got a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of clutter and a lot of accumulation. And when you have the time to sit and look around and, do I really need all this stuff? And you start to feel the weight of it. And so many people, I'm sure many of you, started to get rid of things, started to give things away, give them a new purpose, give Artha to someone else that may need it, whatever. So, asking that question frequently, what is really essential in my life? Do I, among the things I have, what do I really need? And which of these things, what materials that I have, add value to our lives? That's a very important inquiry. Does this really add value to my life? Because so much of what we acquire kind of creeps over into the area of kama, which we'll talk about tomorrow, pleasure. And, pleasure, there's nothing wrong, of course, with pleasure, and there's nothing wrong with taking joy and delight in some of our things, some of our acquisitions. But it's always helpful to kind of recalibrate and ask ourselves the question, does this really add value to my life? Or am I just sort of embellishing myself? Or because much of our acquisitions in our culture have to do with fashion, believe it or not. I mean, as I began to consider this myself and was thinking about, many things we acquire because they're fashionable. We think, we're told by the media this is something we need if we want to be attractive people, if we want to be loved and liked and sexually desirable by others. So we're certainly being programmed all the time by advertising. I don't have to tell anybody that. We know that. However, we're often very subtly hypnotized by the influences of advertising. I don't know if anybody's seen the social, what is it called? Don't tell me. The social, gosh, I forgot the name of it. It'll come to me. Maybe Renee knows. Well, that's all right. I'll think of it later and tell you. But it was a movie about how, I saw it on Netflix, about how the extreme ways that we are being so subtly influenced on our phones, on our computers, through television, through all of our electronic media. It's really, really insidious. So we live in a what? Okay, I can't think of it. Okay, we live in a consumer culture. We know that. We are driven. We have the highest standard of living almost anywhere in the world in the West. And part of what is driving that culture is this, desire for more. Thank you. This social experience, is that it? Well, that may or may not be it. I'm not. Dilemma. Thank you. Social dilemma. Thank you, Jamie. The social dilemma. If you get a chance to see it, it'll wake you up. It'll gobsmack you awake to realize, oh my God, there are people that are in very subtle ways attempting to control us, control our choices, control our buying habits. So we live in a consumer culture that is driven by buying and acquiring and wanting more. We're programmed to long for more and to buy more. And many of us that we live in, we have the affluence to where we're always on the hunt. What's the next thing that I can get that's going to make me feel more valuable, make me feel more attractive, make me feel more desirable to others? In 2020, $250 billion was spent on advertising, mainly spent on online advertising, through our phones, through our computers, all kinds of subtle ways. And of course, those people, and I tell you, I say this with not really remorse, but just to be honest, I worked in the advertising industry at one time in my life. And of course, at that time, we didn't have the gizmos we have now. I made television commercials and wrote commercials and, had accounts and things like that. So the work of advertising at that time was kind of get the message out for different businesses. We have these widgets, come and buy them from us. They're good widgets, and we'll be nice to you when you come. And you remember, these were things more back in the 70s, 80s. But even then, I got very sick of the advertising. I'm not disparaging advertising. There's some people that find great meaning in their lives for being in that business. And it was, for me, a very creative opportunity, to find a way, I thought, to bring messages of consciousness. This was my idea. I was going to bring messages of consciousness through the commercials that I wrote and try to get them out there. And I was even trying to influence people in subtle ways. I thought, this is a good idea. I'm going to try to help people to make better choices. I don't know. I mean, I think I meant well, but mostly what advertising is about these days is to spend more money, buy more things. And we are being manipulated all the time. And the social dilemma, if you get a chance to see it, it will really show you the ways this is happening. So in many ways, these days, goods are symbolic. We don't buy them for the reason of having a practical tool for something. We buy them because they're fashionable. We want to impress other people. We want to be kind of current with what is considered, current, in terms of what's fashionable. So, we have the affluence to really value appearances. And so we do this. We buy things with the intention of enhancing our appearance to others. This idea of keeping up with the Joneses has taken on a whole new dimension in our time now, because our reference group is not just the Joneses next door and whatever car they have or whatever kitchen update they have or whatever. It's become vertical in that we're comparing ourselves to all these celebrities that are who are they? Kardashians. Good God, and all these people that are, that are showing us this is what it takes to be really cool these days. This is what you want. This is what you need. Buy it from me. They'll buy it. I've got my own brand of this. Buy it from me. So, we're trying to compare ourselves with a standard that's not really appropriate for us, and the media really just keeps it coming, keeps reinforcing it. So don't be duped. We mustn't be duped. It's very tempting to go, I'd really like to be like that, but it's very shallow, Advertising always is telling us we're not enough. We're not enough. You have to have this if you want to be complete. And we're being compared, and we are comparing ourselves frequently and unconsciously to a false standard. And it creates the delusional and the delusional craving to fill up whatever this emptiness that we may be feeling from not being so in alignment with Dharma, with real moral values. Again, not in a fundamentalist sense, but moral in terms of being in alignment with natural law. When we're removed from that, we have this feeling of emptiness, and we want to fill it up, and we're told by advertising, here's how you do it. Just get this car, get this new article of clothing, this jewelry. You know what I'm saying. So, because we are very fortunate compared to 90% of the world in our culture, all of us here. that it's very easy and tempting to get addicted to cheaply made goods. I mean, people in more, less affluent parts of the world are struggling and laboring to make this junk that we acquire because, oh, it's so cheap. I just push this button on the computer and it'll arrive tomorrow, and oh boy, don't I, we have it for a week and then we don't care about it. Like a child with a toy, we throw it away, So we're very addicted to this temporary and instant gratification. So we have to take stock of this, take a step back and ask the question, is this really essential? Does it add value to my life if I'm going to continue to do this? Now, I don't want to make all this our good fortune in this country, I don't want to make it completely wrong. We really are, we are so blessed to be able to have whatever we want, pretty much whenever we want it. But it's now up to us to establish a standard for ourselves and not to just be given over to this unconscious habit of buying things. All the big box stores, Amazon, Home Shopping Network, et cetera. I go into Costco sometimes, and you feel like a kid in a candy store. Oh my God, everything's here. I can have everything. And you look at all these people wandering around, just filling their things up, and you're thinking, is anybody considering how fortunate they are? Is anybody feeling gratitude for this, what we have temporarily? Because it's all going to go at some point. All this stuff is going to be irrelevant. But we really want to we want to be conscious about our relationship with material things, and that's really what I'm suggesting, because they can't buy happiness. Maybe a temporary thrill, but it's not lasting. So, we can become trapped by this need to earn more, to buy more. It can drive us. And, many people will work long hours in our culture in order to acquire more and more and more money so they can buy more and better and grander things. And they can, destroy their health in doing this, working so hard because their values are out of alignment with Dharma. And it creates more greed and avarice and hoarding. How horrible is that to see that show about people that are hoarding, and that have become completely consumed by not letting go of things, More for me, more for me. I was shocked. I'm sure some of you have seen some of those videos of people like on Black Friday that are just climbing over other people and elbowing them out of the way to go get some toy or some electronic gizmo. It hurts me in my heart to see that. So finding a balance for our relationship with the material world. There's that expression, you can never get enough of what you don't want. It'll never satisfy you ultimately. So what actually makes a difference in the quality of our lives in terms of the Artha, in terms of the things we have, the material things? A good life is determined not by the external voices, not by the advertisers or the media, the constant influence of media. That doesn't determine our having a good life. It doesn't measure whether our life is good or not. We have to listen to the internal voice to determine, is this a good life? And of course, that's what this whole subject of the Purusharthas is related to. What is a good life? What does that really mean? Some other inquiries, which material things, as I said, add real value to our life? And to really take a look at our appetite for more and to really dial it down, curb the appetite for more. I love that woman, Marie Kondo. I'm sure many of you have seen Marie Kondo. She's that lovely Japanese, she's so sweet, so humble, so it touches me every time I see her on her little show. But to always look at our things and evaluate whether they have a useful purpose for us. And as she always says, do they spark joy for us? Do they actually spark joy? And that's something only we can know. So I think, it's not a bad suggestion as we consider Artha is to really, as I said before, to look around and see what we have and begin to clear some of the clutter and simplify our lives in terms of material things. It's actually very liberating. And I know many of you have had that experience. I've certainly had that experience. It's to get rid of stuff. Whoa. It's like, wow. Now I'm more present. I'm not so anxious and worried about taking care of the stuff. I don't have to buy a bigger house so I can have more stuff in it. I don't have to, I don't have to worry if it's going to break or someone's going to take it, or all the things that we worry about with regard to our belongings and possessions. So simplify and make room for more important things, which are actually not things. The most important things in our lives are actually not things, if you think about it. Our true desire is for wholeness and context to our lives. Again, kind of dialing back to Dharma. That's why it's always so important to consider, if we're considering Artha, we want to consider Dharma as part of this relationship. True meaning, in many respects, is found in community, people, not things. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more tomorrow when we go into Kama. So, and the other part of this around Artha is to contribute beyond what's in it for me. How can I get more for me? That is, it's such a grotesque way of living. But to consider, all the people that don't have enough. And in terms of our collective soul, how can I in some way contribute to someone else's safety, someone else's security, someone else's happiness that may not have the good fortune that I have, the good karma that I have? That's why, every good spiritual tradition will encourage us to be charitable to those less fortunate, to have compassion for the poor. We so often recoil from the homeless people, and there's so many, and there are more all the time. They are part of us. They are part of our collective soul. So along the lines of this subject of Artha, the law of giving and receiving, which essentially says, and one of the things Deepak says in Seven Spiritual Laws, if we crave material affluence, and again, there's nothing wrong with acquiring appropriate things, we should help make others prosperous. I think it's so important. If we want to be prosperous in our lives, if we want to gain the flow of abundance, the flow of affluence in our lives, which, by the way, is always there. We live in an affluent universe. All we have to do is look at nature, look at the sun. We look at everything in nature. It's flowing. It's abundant. But by making others in some way prosperous, contributing to other people's ability to acquire appropriate means for their lives. And as we set an intention to give, we can spread love to everyone we meet. Just having the intention to give creates positive karma that will return to us. So rather than getting into that tight thing of what's in it for me, how can I keep what I have, how can I protect what I've got, how can I give? What can I give? How can I help? And as we said, the practice of gratitude, it's so powerful. Deepak and the Foundation have done all these studies on the dramatic changes that occur in our nervous system, in our brain chemistry, in our endocrine system. I mean, everything changes when we consider what we're grateful for. And what happens is we let go of so much that is not supporting our health, not supporting our well-being, just in terms of the internal chemistry and pharmacy. When we're grateful for everything we already have in our lives, we attract more of the same, as I mentioned. If we put our attention on what we think we lack, which is sometimes the default we have, oh, I wish I had this thing. Well, what ultimately happens when we think about what we're lacking, we just create more of a sense of lack. It's just that simple law of attraction. And we're always going to see ourselves as bereft, or always going to see ourselves as deficient if we think about what we're lacking. So that's why gratitude's so important. Understanding this balance, feeling grateful while still having desires. We wouldn't get out of bed in the morning if we didn't have desires, as we said at the beginning. We will be able to effortlessly manifest what we want, Artha, in alignment with Dharma. As I said, we live in an abundant and affluent universe. We just have to look to nature to see that. And that's why nature can be such a great teacher and a great healer and a great reminder, that we already really are everything we need. We have everything we need in many respects. So some of you may have done this before, but this can be a powerful exercise for manifestation to, consider, what do I really want in my life? What do I need in my life in terms of material things? If there are some things that I would really like to have, that they would give me joy to have, make a list of these. Make a list. And, you don't have to have too many things on the list, but the things that you really feel would add value to your life. And when you write these things on the list, let yourself feel the emotion that comes to you. If I had this thing, how would I feel if it came to me, and would it add value to my life? And how would I feel if it did add value to my life? What would the emotion be? And so you can keep this list by your bedside, and every night before you go to sleep, just add to or modify the list of the descriptions of what I might want. And maybe it's just one thing that you're really considering. There's one thing I would really love. Maybe I want a home, for example, where I really feel comfortable, I feel safe, feel joyful, feel that I can rest well in. Whatever home might be to you. That might be one example. It could be a job, a career, tools of the trade. Could be an amount of money that would allow you to do something that would really add value. So consider this for about 5 minutes before you go to sleep every night. Put the list aside. Before that, read over the list, allow and experience the positive feelings associated with this particular desire, this particular item, and then fall asleep. When you wake up in the morning, again, read over the list and add to or modify the items on the list just for a few minutes. But while you're doing so, and while you're reading it over, allow and experience these positive feelings. Very important in this process of manifestation. Continue this practice for about 30 days, for one cycle of the moon. And then after 30 days, after each night, each morning, looking at the list, feeling what we feel, putting it aside, after 30 days, in some kind of ceremonial way, release, surrender to the universe, to God, Spirit, the universe. Release this intention, desire, sankalpa, we call it, sankalpa. Release it to the universe, as Deepak says, to allow the universe to handle the details. And I mean, let it go, really let it go. And allow the universe to handle the details on its own. So this practice is a powerful practice. And if you haven't done this or something like this before, give it a try, just for the purposes of seeing what happens. Because when we do allow ourselves to consider what would really add value to my life, and when we feel the feelings, it helps in some ways to narrow our focus. But the act of surrendering it to the universe means that we let go of trying to micromanage the outcome. Because most of our desires are not personal. They are the desires of nature expressed through us. So when we let go of attachment, the universe will, in ways more elegant and efficient than we could possibly manage, will fulfill its own desires. Try it out. Experiment with this. I'm going to wind up here, but this is a quote I really like from Walden Pond, from Henry David Thoreau. Our life is frittered away by detail. An honest man has hardly need to count more than his 10 fingers, or in extreme cases, he may add his 10 toes and lump the rest. You know who Thoreau was. He retreated for 2 years on Walden Pond. Simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. I say, let your affairs be as 2 or 3, and not 100 or 1,000. Instead of 1,000,000, count half a dozen, and keep your accounts on your thumbnail. So simplicity. In the midst of this chopping sea of civilized life, such are the clouds and storms and quicksand and 1,001 items to be allowed for. That a man has to live, if he would not founder and go to the bottom and not make his port at all by dead reckoning, he must be a great calculator indeed who succeeds to manage too many things. Simplify, simplify. Instead of 3 meals a day, if it be necessary, eat but 1. Instead of 100 dishes, 5. And reduce other things in proportion. And I'm going to end with these 3 quotes. Abundance is not something that we acquire. It is something we attune to, because it is, we live in an abundant universe, as I said. That was Wayne Dyer, God bless him, a good friend of ours. When we are grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. When we are grateful, Tony Robbins. If you always attach positive emotions to the things you want and never attach negative emotions to the things you don't want, then that which you desire most will invariably come your way. Matt D. Miller. So I'm going to leave these inquiries up for you for a minute or so. Devi's going to give some announcements here, but consider I'm sorry, do I finish at 11? Oh, okay, so we have a few more minutes, right? Do we? 1 minute? Oh, okay, a few more minutes. Okay, thanks. That's a great part of retreat, isn't it? Just go into the timeless, So I'd like you to maybe make some notes of these in your journal, if you would. What resources do I need to play my role? What resources do I actually need? These are things we can consider at any time, to reflect on. And it will help us simplify our lives. Do I trust the universe to support me? This is a really good inquiry, because so much of the time we forget that we do live in an abundant universe, and that when we allow ourselves to be supported, we are. When we surrender our fear, and from our fear, our need to control, we surrender that, and magical things can happen. Is the universe abundant? To really inquire, is that true for me? Is it true that the universe is abundant? It's an opportunity to allow our consciousness to shift. Am I afraid of not having enough? Is that is that something that comes up in our awareness from time to time? Am I afraid of not having enough now? Am I afraid of not having enough at some time in the future? Which isn't real, of course. The future is just some imagination. But am I afraid of not having enough? Really inquire into that. Where does that come from? Where does that insecurity come from? Maybe deep in way back in our childhood, of some anxiety about not having enough, not being fed, not being clothed, not being sheltered. Oftentimes those fears come from, experiences in our childhood that we couldn't resolve at the time, and that little kid is still in there stuck, affecting the way we see the world now. So we want to have compassion for that little child if we can get to that place in ourselves. Am I afraid of having more? That's an interesting inquiry, isn't it? Am I afraid of having more? Some people are, for whatever reason, something to do with our conditioning in childhood. Are we afraid of having more? Are we afraid of abundance? Because maybe having more abundance will allow us to express a greater purpose in life, a greater Dharma. So that's an inquiry to consider. Am I afraid of having more in my life? Would I feel some guilt about having more? And what would more really mean anyway? Would it be more that we could actually give away, or more that we could actually use to help other people in some way? What does wealth mean to me besides money? What is wealth, really? If we want to really consider, what does it mean to be wealthy? Is it just about money and resources, that I can show other people? Here, I've got all this stuff. What is real wealth? And is it something that depends on out here? Is it something that object referral consciousness is always, looking for, so we can, we can aggrandize ourselves by the objects of our experience? Or is wealth something is it something inside? Freedom, inside, inner freedom, love, peace, all the values that we look for through our spiritual life. And do I pursue wealth, perhaps money type of wealth, external wealth? Do I pursue wealth in any way out of proportion to Dharma? In my view, that's one of the most important inquiries, because it can help us recalibrate in any moment. Am I in alignment with Dharma by my preoccupation with this item or that item? And does that item really help me? Will it help me to stay in alignment with my purpose? Will it help me to feel strong and healthy and awake and conscious, so that I can live my purpose? Are we pursuing it in such a way that it's pulling us away from a sense of purpose? Am I giving too much value to these things and not enough value to my own sense of purpose? So maybe these are some inquiries that you could spend a little time with today. Again, this isn't an writing assignment. It's just an opportunity to reflect. What's true for me? Because it's going to be different for each of us. And these inquiries are so helpful in terms of evaluating how we're living in the world, especially in terms of our material things. So thank you, everyone. I hope this is helpful for you, something that will give you an opportunity to contemplate as we go along. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you.
Is this a nourishing choice? Is this an evolutionary choice? Those two really stuck out to me. So beautiful. The cards are beginning to get passed out for today for Artha. So they will be coming down your rows. You have some spaciousness right now, some free time before we begin lunch at 12. 2 o'clock, our walking meditation, meet right here. Also, our seated meditation at 2:30 is right here. And at 4 p.m., a reminder, the yoga is canceled in the way that we know it, and we're going to be having a special session with Deepak and with Sarah Finger right here in the outdoor pavilion. Tantra, mantra, yantra. So that is going to be really beautiful. If it feels serving, try on that hug a little later too. There's so much beauty out here and so much beauty in here for us to really deepen into. As soon as you get your card, as soon as you feel complete in this space, please feel free to move your body and go where you feel led. Thank you.